Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. My name is Oksana and this is Education USA Virtual in Eurasia and Central Asia. Just to remind you that our advising services are fully virtual right now and we provide individual and group advising sessions, undergraduate and graduate application guidance, essay review support, virtual workshops and webinars of course, and also competitive students programs that will help you to apply to the United States. And today I'm glad to introduce our next topic, crafting a personalized graduate application strategy. Today you will learn how to craft a compelling personal statement, secure strong recommendations, and also present a competitive application package with our wonderful guest. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, how's it going? My name is Javian Dawson, and I'm coming from SUNY Polytechnic Institute all the way in the United States. And I have a couple of presentations that I do want to share basically from my experience in helping students in crafting a resume, more so an application to study in the US. So a little bit about myself. I've been doing admissions for over 8 years now. In the state of New York. So I'm actually coming from SUNY Polytechnic Institute, which is one of the largest comprehensive university system in all of America. And I'll get into that a little bit. But I'm also a DSO as well. So for the most part, I do have a couple of points that I want to talk about in terms of like preparing an application. And one thing I do want to mention is when you are considering studying anywhere in the world, you definitely want to do your research. And one thing about the United States of America, we have over 4,000 or 5,000 colleges and universities. So all of these things have to be considered when you are actually preparing an application and all your credentials and stuff like that. So one big thing about SUNY Poly, so you're going to want to definitely consider your program match. So there's a difference between STEM and non-STEM majors, which I'll talk about in a minute, but you're gonna wanna do your research. Also assess your background. If you're coming from an undergraduate background, you wanna make sure that you have the prerequisites that are required. Then once you do all of that and you do your research, you're gonna want to prepare your profile. So one of the biggest things you're going to want to consider is your English proficiency. Majority of the colleges and universities in the United States are going to require some type of English proficiency recommendation. They're going to have a checklist of items. So you're going to want to consider what these checklist items are. You're going to want to definitely prepare them. The test results differ or they pretty much are specific to each university. I can't say one size fits all because every college and university is going to have their own requirements, their own test requirements, credentials, recommendation letters, you name it. They're all going to have their own individual requirements. And then the next thing you're going to want to do is definitely look into applying by submitting your application. Some college universities, they have applications directly on their website that you could actually apply to. And then some college universities, they use standard applications. I'm sure you've probably heard of the common application or depending on where in the states of the United States, like every public university system kind of has their own applications. I know here in the state of New York, we have SUNY application, which basically consists of all 64 state universities. So you could apply on either that application or you can apply on the common application, which is more broad and general and it includes all of the other universities in America. With that being said, you're going to want to prepare your funding as well because you're going to want to make sure that you have the application fee up front. Most universities have deposits that you're going to be required to pay as well. And then a big push is also looking at the scholarship packages. One of the biggest thing about going to a university is you have to understand that you're making an investment. So you're going to want to make sure that when you are looking into a university, it fits your cost description or your affordability or whatever you can afford. You want to make sure you have all of that. And then basically, once you actually complete the application process, you're going to start preparing yourself for the visa interview process. And this is something that you could, obviously work with your consultants at Education USA. Most college universities would have their own team that is available outside of admissions. You also have like an international student service team, and they'll be the ones typically providing best practices, best tips and preparation strategies for getting your visas. But you want to make sure a university has all of that available. So I mentioned earlier about STEM designation power, also the academic environment, stuff like that is something to consider. So when you are applying to a university, you do want to look at, especially in the United States, every student is going to qualify for OPT, which is ocular practical training. So basically, the occupation practical training allows you 1 year after you graduate to work in the United States. So as long as you come to a university in the US, whether you come for your undergrad, you get your bachelor's, or you come for your graduate studies, your master's or PhD, you're going to be eligible after you successfully complete that degree to get your OPT. And that would allow you to work for 1 year. And this is basically providing you with the skills and the experience that is needed for your employer. So, with that being said, the STEM designation power just means that if you choose a university that has STEM programs, you want to make sure that these programs are STEM designated. Sometimes you have programs that may fall in the STEM category, but they're not registered with the US government or SEVIS, which is basically what you need to go through in order to get your visa process and all of that stuff as an F1 student. It's not registered. Some universities have STEM programs that are not registered with SEVIS as STEM designation. So therefore, what that basically means is when you graduate, you won't have that STEM designation power or the extension, which is an additional 24 months or an additional 2 years of study. So that would give you a total of 3 years. You'll have that automatic 1 year after you graduate. And then after that, you'll have an additional 2 years if your program is STEM designated. So that's something you want to consider when you're also looking at universities. You want to look at the degrees. You want to make sure that they're regionally or nationally accredited. You also want to make sure that they have STEM designated programs. So this is one thing to consider. And then, of course, the academic environment. Not all universities, some come smaller, some are larger, some have a more dense population, some are less populated. You want to definitely do your research. Most students that we work with at SUNY Poly, they find that SUNY Poly is a smaller university, so therefore there's smaller classroom sizes. And then you also have a smaller academic student to faculty ratio. So with that being said, students are able to meet with their faculty because their faculty have a lot more time, being that they don't have to deal with a larger population. So they have more hands-on experience and more one-on-one sessions with their faculty, their professors, their all of that. So that means that they'll be able to go to office hours after. They'll not just be a number, but they'll also be a name. Typically in smaller settings, international students find it easier to actually create a network because with a smaller setting, they're not really lost in the excess of all the students. They don't have large classrooms that are like 300, 200, or hundreds of students. Whereas in a smaller setting, you might have a classroom that's a little more intimate where you have maybe about 20 to 30 or even less. I know at SUNY Poly, we have some classrooms that are less than 18 students, the higher you get into your more specific degree. So that is something that students look for as well. You also want to, if you're like, let's say you're more STEM concentrated and more STEM focused, you're going to also want to look into more STEM designated university versus like pre-law or health or something like that. You're going to want to make sure that the university actually graduates students that have the fields of study that you are particularly interested in. That way you're surrounded by a network of students that are kind of in the same industry or field as you. A little bit about financial planning. So I mentioned scholarship models. So these are some scholarship models that we offer at SUNY Poly. So these are something that you're really going to want to consider. That way you can actually afford your studies at wherever you go to, wherever you decide to go to. Most college universities, they have a tuition and then they also have a fees breakdown chart where you could find on their websites. You could just go to their tuition and fees on their website. Most websites are pretty standard in general, where you can find all the information that you need as long as you browse in the right areas. But a lot of times, the scholarships that they offer are more so merit based. So merit based means that it is based on academic GPA. So with that being said, the US grading standard is on a 4.0 scale. So any transcript that you provide is going to be converted to the US GPA scale. So this is just kind of a screenshot or a snapshot of what it looks like to receive a scholarship at SUNY Poly. So 3.0 to 3.24, you'll receive 6,000 per year. And this is both at the graduate and the undergraduate level. And then you have 7,000, 8,000, or 9,000. And it really depends on your GPA. The higher your GPA, the higher the amount of your scholarship. There are other things to consider when coming to the US, especially as an F1 student. There's certain rules and laws and regulations in place for F1 students when it comes to working and studying in the US. So one thing you have to consider is you're not allowed to work anywhere outside of your degree specifications, meaning that as long as it's like an internship where it's registered through SEVIS as a CPT, curricular practical training, or an OPT after you successfully complete the degree, or if it's like a work study opportunity on campus during your studies, you have the opportunity to work and study. But there are limitations like up to 20 hours a week. If it's on campus, it would basically be anything that's available on campus. You have like library services. You could become an RA, where basically you're a registered aide on campus where you're helping students with the residential life and housing. That could potentially pay for your housing and food cost. You also have um, your opportunities in food services facilities, you name it. There's different opportunities that you can work on campus while studying, but you're only allowed to work up to 20 hours a week. And I would say that you don't want to typically consider this as paying for your tuition or all of your fees. You want to make sure you prepare your bank financial statement. You go over the COA, the cost of attendance, before actually applying. That way you could actually cover the funds for the 2 years of study that you're there, or the 4, or however many years you're there. And then you also have like research opportunities, you have like GA position opportunities, and you have other funding opportunities outside of the institutional merit-based scholarship. And then there are also third-party scholarships that you're going to want to search on the website as well. So majority of the universities, especially in America, they have application requirements. So one thing you're going to want to prepare before even applying to any university, for this matter, is your transcripts. You want to make sure that if your transcripts are not in English, that they're evaluated from a NACCES approved evaluation service. You're also want to make sure that you fit the criteria. There's certain GPA requirements. You're going to need to submit a statement of purpose at most universities. And in this statement, you're going to explain professionally your goals and the reasons that you're choosing this major. And also, if you have any intent to research, this is great to include in the statement of purpose. That way, faculty, when it goes to them for faculty review, they're able to look at it and they could easily figure out where you'll fit on campus in terms of research opportunities or maybe GA or something like that. A lot of times, university is going to want a resume. So, coming as a graduate student, you're going to want to make sure you have a strong resume that's explaining or reflecting your academic background. Uh, your GPA, putting your GPA on a resume is very helpful, especially if the DSO or the person reviewing your application has to kind of compare or convert GPAs. This is pretty helpful to understand like what GPA in your country is to US standard. Also, you're going to want some references. You're going to want to make sure that you gather all your references, keep this in mind before you even complete the application. And then your language skills. You're going to want to go ahead and go for your IELTS, TOEFL, or Duo. These are the three common ones, but you want to check the university's website to make sure or see what other type of English proficiency requirements. Some universities don't accept every English proficiency. So you want to make sure that that university accepts it before even applying if you have taken that English proficiency to make sure that you meet their standards. Another big thing is you're going to want to look at the university to make sure and see if they require outside of the English proficiency any other standardized testing. You have some graduate programs they require, depending on what you're going for. If it's medical, it could be like the MCAT. If it's something more in the law, the LSAT. If you're looking for something more general, the GRE, or if you're coming as an undergraduate student, SAT, ACTs, all of that standardized testing, you're going to want to make sure you study the university website requirements. And this is all available typically on their admissions page. And make sure and see if they have any English proficiency or any other standardized test requirements before even applying. That way you can make sure you meet that criteria. I will say that SUNY Poly is test optional outside of the English proficiency. We only require that, but any other standardized testing, we are test optional. And when it comes to evaluation of academic transcripts, as long as it's in English, we will accept the official copy of that. We wouldn't need a necessary evaluation unless you're coming as a transfer student. Then we would need a NACES approved evaluation of your transcript. So you also want to do a background check in the program that you are going for, especially when it compares to the job market, because one of the biggest thing about your investment at SUNY Poly or any other university that you study for post-graduation of high school or undergraduate studies is you're definitely going to want to make sure you're preparing yourself for a job opportunity. Or maybe you're more entrepreneurial where you want to start your own business and stuff like that. And you want to better equip yourself with the skills and the experiences that you need in order to be successful in that venture. One of the big programs that we offer at SUNY Poly out of the graduate programs, we offer four. We offer data science, computer science, cybersecurity, and also civil engineering. Currently, these are the four graduate programs that we offer. But data science and analytics is pretty prominent right now with everything pushing more towards AI and stuff like that. So you definitely want to do a case study and figure out what programs are more in demand. That way you have a better yield or return on your investment. This is something you're also going to want to consider. And then just maintaining a collaboration or getting to know the DSO, which is a designated school official. I happen to be one of the DSOs on the campus at SUNY Poly. So just getting to know the DSO or the admission advisor or the admission counselor or the person that is reviewing your application, pretty much walking you through the application process, creating a partnership or a relationship with that individual will be helpful, especially when it comes to the application process. There are a lot of schools that are um, very competitive where in order to get into the university, you would have to pretty much meet a lot of eligibility requirements. And then on top of that, if you have two of the same application that reflect very similar academic profiles and backgrounds and stuff like that, and it is a competitive program where they're only allowing maybe like 50 students in that program, you're going to want to make sure you stand out. And ways that you could do that is through like uh, extracurricular activities that you're doing, and also developing that relationship with the DSO or the admission advisor who is reviewing your application. That way you can reach out to them, and if they know you by name and you have a strong partnership with that individual, it would be helpful for you when it comes to the application process, especially if there's hundreds and thousands of applicants and you want your name to stand out over the other thousand or hundreds of applicants. That would be very helpful. So after you go through the admission process, one thing you want to keep in the back of your mind is the visa process, because this is very important. Let's say you do get accepted to the university of your dream, and now the biggest barrier between you and studying at that university would be to obtain your F1 visa. So, in order to obtain that, you're going to need a couple of things from the university in particular. One of the things you're going to need is obviously the acceptance letter. Sometimes you need or sometimes students request invitation letters. I'm not really sure by data if that's really helpful or if the embassies actually take that into consideration. But for the most part, you're going to want all your documents from the university. And one of these documents is your I-20. In order to receive this I-20, you have to also prepare your mind for paying the expenses that is appropriate. Some universities have I-20 fees. Some universities only have a deposit. So after you get accepted into the university, in order to confirm your enrollment, you have to pay the enrollment deposit. Here at SUNY Poly, that enrollment deposit is only $250. This is US dollars. This is not an additional fee. This is more so a placeholder that is credited back to your account once you actually, once you actually go through the matriculation process and you finalize everything, and you actually receive your bill that is generated for that semester or that term, then you will see the $250 deposit credited back to your overall balance. Some universities don't do that. It's more of a fee that you have to pay that is non-refundable. You have to make sure you find that out before committing to a university. Some universities refund it if your visa was denied, as long as you provide ample amount of proof that your visa was denied or rejected, or maybe within 30 days you decided to change your mind and now you no longer want to study in the US. As long as you are communicating with your admission advisor, your DSO, through that admission process, that would determine whether or not you will get the refund for the deposit. But pretty much another thing for receiving the I-20 is you're going to need bank and financial statements. Every university will list the amount that is required for the I-20 on the bank and the financial statements. The bank statement is basically a letter, usually a paragraph long, from your bank, or let's say you have multiple sponsors and they each provide a bank statement showing that they have the funds available that would be able to fund your actual studies. That all adds up to the I-20 amount that is required. So And then you would also have the financial statement, which is pretty much kind of like a cover letter to the bank statement, just kind of like explaining like all your individual sponsors listed on it. That way, if you had like multiple sponsors from family members, stuff like that, then it'll all be listed um, on the actual financial statement. And then paying the SEVIS fee, you want to prepare yourself. It's typically, I don't know I think it's 350 US dollars. This is definitely bound to change, but this is the federal government of the US, where no universities have control of the SEVIS fee and the fees that are required for the actual application to the visa and the visa appointments. So these are additional fees, but you're also going to want to submit your DS-160. The DS-160 is pretty much an application to your visa. And in order to be successful, I mean, there are times where students falsify some information. You want to make sure you complete this as honest as possible and as accurate as possible. Make sure if you're using your names and all of that, or names of sponsors or family members or friends or anything like that, you use the name that is listed on their passports. And you also alert them if you are using any references. That way they are aware. So that's pretty much the basic steps. And then after that, you're going to go for your visa interview. And pretty much these are some tips and tricks or best practices that Education USA could actually help you with a lot more. But these are things to kind of keep in your mind when you are preparing for study in the US and also for your application and all of that stuff. Let me see. So yeah, I basically mentioned all of these. If you want, you can take a screenshot of this. This is kind of breaking down OPT, CPT, and also STEM OPT extension and stuff like that. And that's also the president of SUNY Poly right there.
Great, thank you so much. Should we switch to the second presentation?
Sure, we can. So yes, please, let's switch to that. So this one is a little more specific to SUNY Poly. I just wanted to kind of give an overview of some of SUNY Poly's requirements and stuff like that. I hear Polytechnic outside of the US is considered like a trade school, but here at SUNY Poly, Polytechnic is actually our way of saying that we provide applied learning. So not only are you going to get theory, but you're also going to get the practice that you need. We have labs on our campus. We have research labs. We have 14 research labs for students to conduct research as early as the first semester. We also have job opportunities, and we have so many hands-on labs on our campus that would better prepare you for the skill sets that you need upon graduating from SUNY Poly. Let me see. This is loading. Little bit about our location. So I mentioned that we are in the state of New York. New York is a large state. You have quite some ground to cover, but every time people hear New York, they think of New York City. So we're smack dab center in the state of New York. And one thing about SUNY, SUNY, State University of New York, it's the largest comprehensive public university system in all of America. Every state, California, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Vermont, Massachusetts, you name it, they all have their own public university or state university system. We happen to be the state university system of New York, and we offer 64 independent universities within the umbrella of SUNY. So we are about 4 hours away from New York City in terms of driving. And then if you decided to fly, it'll be probably like an hour or so. Let's see. So here are the programs that we offer. So these are all the F1 visa eligible programs. We have 4 colleges: College of Health Sciences, College of Business, College of Art Sciences. Then our largest college is the College of Engineering. And then we also have 4 master's programs: data science, civil engineering, computer science, cybersecurity. And these undergraduate programs are bachelor's programs that we offer. So One of our largest programs that we offer, I would say, is our data science at the graduate level. And then at the undergrad level, I would say computer science. And then second to that will probably be our mechanical engineering. We have pre-law and pre-health opportunities as well. We offer merit-based scholarships at every level. One thing is the undergraduate scholarship, you receive that per year, whereas the graduate scholarship, it is a 2-year program where you'll receive either 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9,000, depending on your academic GPA coming at the undergrad level. And then there are also job opportunities on campus. There's research opportunities and all of that you can indulge in. We prepare students for the high earning industries. I mentioned the labs that we have on campus. So this is anywhere from advanced manufacturing to AI machine learning, even social work, pre-law opportunities, healthcare opportunities, finance, and of course, engineering. We have a lot of companies that we partner with, and our faculty, getting to know them and doing your research and actually reaching out to them prior to even applying is helpful. That way you could actually get some industry insight on what partnerships we have. And then I mentioned we have research opportunities. So not only do you have the opportunities with the merit-based scholarship and the third-party funding opportunities, but you also have the research opportunities that we have on our campus. And we have a lot of industries. These are hands-on, these are cross-disciplinary, and they're also not only theoretical, but also applied. So you could definitely start researching to get like an additional funding. A lot of times our faculty are securing additional funds that help them when it comes to actually preparing or actually, I guess searching for the next class of students who's going to do research. And that's really brief. I just wanted to kind of give you a nice little overview of SUNY Poly. And basically at this point, I'm going to leave it open for any questions that anybody may have.
Great. Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation and especially for sharing some details about SUNY. It's really nice to hear that you have, I would say these are like pretty relevant master's program nowadays. So I think our students will be interested in them. Yeah, so we do have some questions. I think I will start from the chat, and everyone who is still here with us, you're welcome to ask your questions. We also have some questions from participants who registered in advance, so they dropped out some questions before the webinar, so I will also proceed with them. So let's maybe just move to this question slide like this. Great. Okay, so let's start with the question from the chat. You can also see it on the screen. Can maybe you, not they, can you consider students whose GPA is lower than 3.0, but with strong professional profile with internships and programs?
So so this is one of the things that can be considered, but it is on a case-by-case basis. Typically, majority of the graduate programs, their minimum GPA requirement is a 3.0 or higher, but there are some exceptions. And this is basically where the resume will come in handy, and also the cover letters and the personal statement. So the personal statement and also the letters of recommendation. These 3 factors will come in handy when it comes to potentially providing that exception for students who fall below the traditional GPA requirement. Because usually what happens in that step or that process is myself as a DSO admission counselor, I would no longer be the one to make the decision on this application. I would forward it over to the department chair or the department coordinator, or the program coordinator, to basically give the final review. And a lot of times what they're going to ask for is the transcripts. They're also going to ask for any extracurricular, like the things that I mentioned, statement of purpose, resume, and also the letters of recommendation before they make the decision. So this is very important.
Yeah, great. This is really good to know about such option and opportunities for some students. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so and the next question is, were there any cases where the student got accepted to university but visa was not given?
Yes. So that is something that I guess entirely in the US, we're facing a little more now with the geopolitical state and the current administration. There have been times when this was the case. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, if there is like a tuition deposit that is required, this is typically something that could be refunded if a student were not to successfully receive their, excuse me, their visa or secure their visa, then these are things that kind of do happen. Usually, in these particular cases, I advise students to reach out to Education USA consultants to kind of speak about, opportunities, best tips and practices. A lot of times, I'm going to want to look at the student's DS-160. I want to just kind of review that to see if maybe you didn't complete it properly. Maybe you missed crucial information, and maybe there's a better way for you to complete that to make sure that it's not something that they pretty much, I guess, a lot of times, usually before a student gets into the actual consular seat or the interview, their application is already reviewed, their DS-160, their financial statements, all of that. So if there's any inaccuracies or errors in that, that could prevent or potentially prevent the student from receiving their visa. So yes, this is something that does happen, but I do tell students that just because you get a visa denial, it's not the end of the world. You can reapply for the visa, and there are things that you would pretty much have to consider when reapplying. But these are things that we could advise, and we could also consult students or advise students to reach out to the appropriate sources.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. And I also would like to mention that this is like a hot season for visas right now, for
Yes.
issuing visas. So if you have any questions or you're who's hesitating about something, you're welcome to reach out to Education USA and ask your questions. We have an option with one-on-one advising sessions, so you don't need to visit any group sessions. But if you have some specific questions, you're welcome to ask our advisors personally, and we will be glad to help you with any questions. Great, thank you so much. So I think the next question is about PhD in social work. So do you have PhD in social work at SUNY Poly? And what is the TOEFL requirement minimum score?
Yeah, so I'll start with the TOEFL minimum requirement. That would be 79 across the all of the programs that we offer here at SUNY Poly. As far as PhD in social work, currently we do not have PhD in social work. We do have some programs that are 100% online, and that means that it just doesn't fit the criteria to be F1 visa eligible. So if you wanted to stay in your country and browse our website to find out the online programs that we offer, you could apply to some of our online programs. As far as social work, we don't particularly have that program. I do know we have like a IDT program. We have like a nurse practitioner and psychiatric mental health profession program and stuff like that. But social work, we don't particularly have. We
Mhm.
just have our master's program, the civil engineering, computer science, cybersecurity, and data science analytics. And they're actually talking about getting a data science analytics
Mhm.
PhD program. That should be very soon.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Do you accept students with the best GPA score, but who haven't taken IELTS, TOEFL, SAT?
So, in particularly, most universities in the United States are going to require an English proficiency. And with that being said, I mean, it is pretty much required as well. Even if you have a great GPA, because that GPA could have been in your language or it could have been in another language that's not English. So we need to make sure that you actually are able to actually comprehend. We don't want to set you up. You want to make sure that you can actually speak English, you can actually write, read, comprehend it, and all of that stuff. That way, you're best prepared. So having English proficiency is definitely something that is required. There are times where maybe there are exceptions. Like let's say you went to an English speaking country for your undergrad. such as the UK or somewhere else. These are exceptions to that rule. Or maybe you're already in the US and you've went to a US university. So again, that's an exception to the rule. Or maybe your instruction or your medium of instruction was in English. These are things to consider, but of course that would be a case by case basis. And the general rule is that you would need an English proficiency requirement.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, so and we do have a couple of questions from registered participants, and I will start with maybe such interesting question is how to demonstrate your values that go along with university values.
Yes. So I'm sorry, can you repeat the last part of that?
Yeah, how to demonstrate personal values that go along with university values? Like, what is the best way to do it to show that you support these values of the university as well?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of times that would be in your personal statement or your statement of purpose. In that, you're going to want to be pretty specific to why you're coming to this university or why you're considering it. You're definitely going to want to tailor your statement of purpose. And this would demonstrate that you actually value the university's values and you also understand and you've done your research to know what is available at this university. You want to make sure that this is expressed. Some universities do interviews as well, where before they actually accept a student, they do an interview. It might be a virtual, it might be in person if they're in your country, something like that. But within these interviews, they could pretty much probe if the student is the right candidate. Here at SUNY Poly, we don't do the interviews. So really the statement of purpose is something that we strongly consider. And also just throughout the application process, it's sometimes a pretty lengthy process. So I would be able to have those one-on-one sessions with you and kind of get to know you a lot better.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Okay, I think we have the last question, and this is about recommendations. Is it
Yes.
necessary to have recommendations from prestigious STEM professor if I have STEM-related major?
Yeah, so recommendation letters, I would advise that they do come from your professors. That way they could speak on your academic performance, or also if you are working in an industry currently in a career, having like a supervisor or manager actually provide an actual letter of recommendation. That's pretty helpful because the recommendations letters, they have to be professional source. They can't be personal, like family member or something like that. They would have to be professional.
Great. Thank you so much. I think
Sure.
that's it. Yeah, it was very nice to see all the slides that you have presented today. And thank you so much for such detailed steps of like application strategy. I think it was pretty helpful for our students to define what they should do and where they should start actually the application process. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thanks everyone for being with us today. We will be glad to see you also during our next webinars.
Yes, for sure. Thank you, everybody. And if you have to reach out or you want to reach out to me, my contact information is on the screen. Feel free to screenshot that and copy that information. And this was great. Thank you all for having me. Thank you, Education USA. And I'm sure it's evening time right now. So have a great evening. Is there another question that popped up?
Yeah, I think yes, this is about extracurricular activities. Activities really strong or GPA played the main role in application? Okay, let's finish with this one.
Yeah, sure. So majority of the universities are going to say GPA is the strongest factor. But again, there are case by case basis where maybe the GPA is not strong and maybe they have extracurriculars. If it's relevant to the program, like let's say you're trying to get into the health field and you have like, working experience in the health industry or pre-law or you name it, engineering, you have the relevant background, then these extracurricular activities would play into it. And also when you're talking about like sports or clubs or anything like that, this is this is definitely going to show that, sports is going to show that you have great structure. And sometimes it even helps with the lower GPA. Like if you are a D1 athlete and you have this on your resume, then your GPA is lower, then it shows that your commitment was stronger in your athletics. So this is something to consider. But usually the GPA plays the main factor, but then everything else is kind of like subsidiary and the secondary, where if the GPA is not as strong, that's when advisors start looking at the other components, the application, and not just GPA.
Great. Yeah, so thank you so much. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. If you have any questions, please reach out to Education USA Virtual, and we'll be glad to help you with any question. Thank you so much, and see you.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.